So, welcome to the Career Challenges podcast. I have with me Nancy Solari of Living Full Out. She is the founder of Living Full Out. So, Nancy, what is Living Full Out exactly?
Well, Living Full Out is a motivational speaking coaching company, and we're all about helping people to kind of go full out, full throttle in their lives, but not just career, but personal as well, and hobbies, and you name it, just so we have a balanced life. That's what we really strive for.
hmm So, do people come to you looking specifically for life or business, or is it sometimes just all of it?
It's really both because the frustration for a lot of business owners is they put all their heart and soul and time into their business, yet maybe their love life or their other relationships suffer. Or maybe they have had such a good time in life, experiencing
Mm-hmm.
life, that they turn around and all their friends and family have passed them by career-wise, and they're like, oh no, retirement, what am I going to do? So really, we try to find that balance. That's our goal.
All right, all right. And you're based out of Los Angeles, California, correct?
Yeah, we actually moved our offices recently to Huntington Beach, so
Hmm.
we're at Surf City, USA now.
All right. And do you find location really has had a positive or negative effect on helping your clientele?
My clientele generally tends to be all over the country, even in
Mm,
Canada.
wow.
So, while I do meet with some people in person, there's a lot of people that I work with by phone. And there's a lot of SOS calls.
Mhm.
SOS, this meeting's not going well, or I have a presentation tomorrow and, I'm in my own head. And so, we take the plan calls and the SOS calls.
Awesome. Awesome. So, how did you get started building Living Full Out? Was that always on your mind, or is it just kind of a progression from something else?
Well, actually, when I started my career life in my early 20s, I actually started in broadcasting. And
Mhm.
then from there, I went into the music industry. Now, sex, drugs, and rock and roll wasn't quite the perfect fit. So I then went into real estate and I became a top producing realtor for 13 years. And as gratifying as it was helping people buy like their first home and that kind of thing, I just knew that I had studied people so much. I had studied the people in the music industry who felt like they had to keep up with the Joneses or in some cases sell out. I saw a lot of people in broadcasting, again, watch a lot of their personal life suffer to really put that career first because it was so competitive. And then in real estate, watching couples argue over hardwood floors or paint. It's amazing what will set people off.
Yeah.
And I just knew that I wanted to create a platform where people could connect the dots because, you can have a dream, you can have an ambition, but how do you connect the dots from wanting it to be something and actually making it happen?
hmm So, do you provide actionable steps, or is it really more mindset coaching?
It's actually both. It just depends on what somebody needs, like where they're in their own way or where they're stumbling. Because for some people, it is a confidence factor. It's, I'd like to start my own business, but what if I fail? What if no one buys it? And we could play the what if game forever, but then I work with them on feeling out, what is their unique selling proposition? What makes them stand out amongst the competition? And then for other people, it is the resources. I myself am legally blind, so it's not always a snap for me to do something. A lot of
hmm
times the people at my company are my eyes. Hey, can you look on the website and tell me what this looks like? Or can you read that to me? So I think sometimes you have to get resourceful in delegating and building the right team.
hmm And if I ask, have you always been blind?
Actually, I was diagnosed when I was 16, and my two sisters, they're older than me, we all had the same eye condition called retinitis
Oh
pigmentosa.
no.
And so, yeah, from 16 to now, I'm in my early 40s, it's changed a lot. So now my life is just very blurry, no real definition or colors or anything. But in some ways, the weird thing is, I think it's made me a better business owner. We hear about the flashy object syndrome. I don't have that. I don't see it, right? Or this
So it's really a
competition factor.
blessing.
It is actually a blessing. I
Yeah.
don't see competition on social media, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's but see, for me it's blindness, but for somebody else, I think it's about figuring out, what is that superpower? What gives you the extra edge? It might be your education, it might be your disability, it might be that you're just a tech genius or,
Mhm.
intellectually gifted, right? Everybody's got a superpower. In business, it's just about figuring out what is that.
True. Well, I'm a big comic book nerd. I really loved comic books before they became popular. So since you brought up the superheroes, the superpower question, so I have to ask, what is the oddest superpower that you've unearthed?
Well, you mean ones that others have told me about or my own superpower?
Or I guess when you're helping people and you're helping them figure out what their superpower is, what is kind of the oddest superpower you've seen in somebody? Like, there's the tech stuff, but has somebody been, I guess, really good at listening for something?
The thing is, I don't know if I can speak to odd, but what I can say is like some people, their superpower is humor. And they can disarm a room with humor. They just got that charisma. For other people like you, I so admire the book nerds. That's just not me. Like but I love it. Some people just can research something to the death, to the end,
Hmm.
right? They will go all the way, and so it's kind of finding that sweet spot. But the funny thing is, the one superpower a lot of people wish they had is the ability to read people's minds.
Oh,
That's the top
always.
one. Yep.
Always. Yeah.
Yep.
It's a cliche, but at the same time, you think of how much of an advantage you would have in life if you knew what people were trying to get across to you. And maybe they're trying to be delicate or they just don't know the exact words, but if you could read their mind, then you could cut through all that and understand in seconds as opposed to sometimes years what people are trying to get across to you. So yeah, I definitely would agree with that. I would love to have that power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so super speed also, I would love to have that because then I wouldn't have to commute as much and spend money on gas. I could just run there and run back.
There you go. Transporting yourself from here to there to everywhere.
Yes. The only problem is it would just be me. So if I have to get my family across town, then I would still have to put them in the car and drive and use the gas. So
Right. Exactly.
so um, so yeah, it's great that you're here on the Career Challenges podcast. But I've also noticed you've done other shows that maybe some people are familiar with.
Yeah, early in my career, I was lucky enough to, support and be a part of the production team for Entertainment Tonight and Good Morning America, and even earlier than that, I was a producer on different morning shows and DJing and you name it. But what I think is so interesting about life is, if we go back in time to maybe our very first jobs, we that were, a server somewhere, a bartender, maybe we were
Mhm.
babysitting, the skills that we learned then is what you want to take with you all through life. It's still the same skill set. Who you were as a babysitter is still who you are as a business owner. It's how did you manage the different personalities, the parents, the kids? Were you on time? It's the same thing in business. How are you managing your team? Are you on time? Do you hit your deadlines? So I just kind of find it very interesting because the habits and who we were when we were young, it's not that we can't get past them, but a lot of times they're kind of naturally within us.
Hmm. Hmm. Almost like the superpowers as well. So would you say there's that link between kind of your first job, your superpower, and then the sweet spot for your career?
Absolutely. And honestly, the quest of life is to crack the code on what is your purpose and let your passion guide you there. And that can change because there's a lot of people who are successful. Maybe they have multiple businesses. Maybe they've had different endeavors over time and they've done well at them and some maybe they failed. But the thing is it's okay to pivot. It's
Mhm.
okay to go one direction for one decade of your life and then say, you know what? My heart isn't in it anymore. I want to make a change and pivot. And then it's okay to go down that road for a little bit and change again. It's if you're really in this game of life, you want to play it. Don't
Hmm.
just sit by. Don't just collect your $200 every time you pass go.
Yes.
Actually roll the dice, see where you land, and have fun. I think sometimes people in business forget to have fun. It's they get wrapped up in the deadlines and the looking good and the I gotta be somebody. I gotta check that box. But they're going to miss it. They're going to miss those moments of the people they actually help or learning new things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. So with I had a question and I just forgot it. I'll have to edit this out. Anyway, um, so with your clients and you're helping them to discover their superpowers, what if they say, well, what good is that superpower to me? So for example, of course, this isn't a real life example. My superpower would be I can turn to stone. What good is that going to do me? So how would you approach a situation like that?
Well, turning someone into stone is just kind of it's just kind of an example that
Hmm.
they can freeze people, they can stop people in their tracks, they can hold them back from doing things. But let's look at the idea of I can turn people into stone. Is that a positive thing? Is that a good attribute or a negative attribute? So, what you have to really realize is are you a superhero for the greater good or
Hmm.
are you a superhero for no good? Right?
Oh.
So, the thing is it's really picking what is the power that resonates with you, that vibrates throughout your body as to who you are. There's a lot of people that would say, I want the power to heal. I love that. But healing doesn't mean that you're going to heal cancer, but healing could mean that if a coworker is having a really bad day, you know how to lift them up with
Hmm.
motivation, right? So it's not like a literal superpower of turning someone to stone, but it's like looking at that and saying, is that really the best example of who I am as a person, who I want to be?
Hmm. Yeah. So a real world example now, now that I've had time to think of one, we'll say my superpower is I'm really good at research, but I'm a socially awkward person. I don't have a lot of business connections. How can I use that superpower to really make my career, beneficial or take off?
Well, believe it or not, I've always found that you're kind of a triple threat if you're a great communicator, an
Hmm.
excellent writer, and you have effective research skills. That's like a triple threat, I think.
Hmm.
But if you're really good at research, then you can make waves happen. You could cure a condition,
Hmm.
right? You could uncover something that no one else sees. So I think that is a superpower. That is a gift. And that can be a career. It's just, okay, matching that talent you have with the right career. Where are you going to build your legacy being a great researcher? Who needs you the most? And so, again, I like my clients to come to me with what they think they're good at, and then we also peel away the layers of what they don't even know they're good at, and then we find the career that doesn't even make it feel like work. They're just so
Hmm.
naturally good at it. It's like I can't even believe I get paid to do this, right? That's the lane you want to be
Hmm.
in.
So for ugh, let me try again. From where you stand, what is your kind of ideal client if you have one in mind?
My ideal client is someone who is
Hmm.
open to feedback, open into letting go of some expectations that others have put on them that they put on themselves, being open to maybe changing their career, open to maybe letting go of their business. Because sometimes people are meant to be business owners and entrepreneurs, and sometimes other people excel in more of a corporate team environment. So, it's about being open and also letting go and finding, again, that balance. And then when you couple that with understanding what makes your heart sing, what excites you, what would you want to jump out of bed and do every morning, right? I mean,
Hmm.
we're doing this interview now, and I was excited from the minute I got out of bed. I couldn't wait to get on the phone with you and talk
Oh
to you
wow.
and be with your audience, right? And that's because I'm in the zone. This is what I want to do. But if someone said, okay, Nancy, when you leap out of bed, we need you to research for 5 hours. That's not me, right? If someone said, okay, well, Nancy, we need you to turn in a 10-page paper by the end of the day. Nope, not me, right? Because I'm a communicator. So everybody's going to have their sweet spot, that lane that they want to be in, and that's what you want to figure out. Again, that's what it means to live full out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what if somebody comes to you and says, I need your help, but they're not really willing to change. They're not open-minded like that. Well, how would you approach somebody like that?
I actually love those people. I love it. I love it because
that is quite amazing. I mean, I would want to help them, but
actually,
at the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be tough.
no, those people have built up such defense mechanisms that
Mm-hmm.
they just need to be heard. The people who are stubborn and in some cases bullies and in some cases people who are complacent,
Mm-hmm.
it's just because they've lost faith. They have been maybe pigeoned into a corner where people have given up on them. Maybe they've given up on themselves. And I think for me, it's about reigniting that fire, finding a way to help them discover, let's just start really, really small. What do you want to do this weekend? Oh, I don't know. I think I want to stay home. No, no, no. Let's do something. Like what would be something that you could do for a half an hour that maybe you used to like to do in high school as a kid? I like arcades. Great, great. Is there arcade, Dave and Buster's, something near you? You kind of get them talking. So the people that are stubborn, those are actually the people that have the biggest breakthroughs. It just takes a little longer to get there. And sometimes the most loyal clients are the ones that you nurture the longest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, part of the reason why for my next question is, I used to teach. My wife is still a teacher as well, and there's those students who, they have that attitude of, well, what makes you the boss? Why should I be following you? Have you ever come up against that in your line of work?
Actually, I've been pretty lucky that I haven't really had that. I think most people know that I'm pretty honest. I kind of tell it like it is, but at the same time, I get it. I get breakdowns, and we've all heard the saying, you have to have a breakdown to break through.
Mm-hmm.
I get complacentness. I get lonely. I get having a disability. I get having your heart broken. I get being stolen from. I get failing. And so when somebody comes to me, whether it's a client of mine or somebody on my team, it's less about me talking and more about getting them talking. And then once they talk, it's not about one upping. See, in life and in business, a lot of times people want to one up. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I know exactly how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
But that is kind of a slap in the face that I know exactly how you feel. Or somebody will come up with a story that's even grander than what the person was saying. And then that kind of pushes the other person down.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of etiquettes to communicating. And so I think that most people, when they work with me, whether at Living Full Out, my company, or as a client, I think they realize, wow, this is somebody that's really going to listen, and she really wants to help me get to where I want to go. It's up to them how long it's going to take us to get there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Awesome. So I'm curious where this mindset came from. I mean, were you born with it?
Oh, well, the interesting thing about that is when I was younger, my parents got divorced, and
Mm-hmm.
we had a lot of hardships growing up. Domestic violence. My mom had cancer. My sisters and I all got diagnosed with RP when I was 16, and they were just a couple years older than me. And what happened is this 10-year-old Nancy became a really good listener. She studied people's behaviors. She tried to negotiate somebody who is angry to be not angry,
Mm-hmm.
and then over time, I started watching. And I know it's kind of silly, but I started watching Oprah, and I
Mm-hmm.
was one of those teenage girls that grew up with Oprah, and I was thinking, how do you do that? Like, how could I do that? And so I knew that you had to understand behavior, so I got a psychology degree. I knew I needed to understand broadcasting, so I got a broadcasting degree. And so the reason why I tell you about that initial career path, and then I tell you about the hardships went through when I was a little girl. Well, when I was diagnosed at 16 with RP, it was kind of game on. The doctors said to us, you will be blind by 40. Now, at 16, you can sit with denial for a couple of years. But then I thought to myself, well, gosh, if this is really going to happen, then I need to put a bucket list together of all the things I need to have my eyes for. I need my eyes to go to college because accessibility software and tools weren't as plenty as they are now. So I
Hmm.
needed my eyes. I wanted to see Europe. I saw 26 countries in Europe. So I really kind of prioritized, what did I need my eyes for? And then ironically, later in life, having my own business and all that, I don't need my eyes. I just need my mind and I need my voice, and then my teammates, all my people that assist me are my eyes. So
Hmm.
I know it's kind of a long answer, but that's kind of how I got started.
No, that's a great answer. That's a great answer. So, as you're studying, psychology and broadcasting, how were you able to get those two mindsets together? Because Oprah obviously has her way of doing it. Were you thinking, well, I'm going to just mimic Oprah, or were you thinking I have to do it in a different way?
Great question. The thing is I admired Oprah, and when I started getting into my broadcasting career, it was the first thing I tackled. Um, as I was walking down the halls, and I remember seeing Barbara Walters at ABC in New York,
Wow.
and I was like, wow, I can't believe that I'm like hanging around all these really amazing professionals. But, what I realized in that moment is it wasn't about being another Oprah. It was about figuring out who is Nancy. And I had to go through, all those different careers, whether it was broadcasting, the music industry, real estate, building Living Full Out. And, in 2010, when KFWB and I collaborated and we started the Living Full Out radio show, that's when I started to really figure out, okay, I get it now. I get who Nancy is. I get my lane. And so, again, I think that is the quest of not just life, but if we have our careers, even if we're in our family, being the best father, mother, friend, sister that you can be.
Hmm. Hmm. Awesome. So with your radio show, and you're starting that, there's only, I guess, so much book knowledge you can read. Were there life experiences that you're like, okay, I've gone through this, so if I can handle that, I can definitely handle this.
Yeah, that's interesting because what I have found is all the different things I've survived in my life, every hardship got easier and easier and easier. And I don't know if anybody in the audience has felt this as well. I'm hoping so. But when you get to a crossroad and you feel that pain, you feel that nervousness, you feel that worry, the thing is I remember saying to myself, okay, these feelings feel very familiar. I have felt this before. And then the mindset happens where we say, okay, I survived it once, I can survive it again. Then it's our responsibility to go deeper. How did I survive it before? Who in my life did I turn to? What were the toxic habits that I wish I hadn't done? I don't want to do those again.
Yeah.
What were the positives in my life? So we can learn a lot by looking backwards.
Hmm. Hmm. And is that part of your goal of helping your clients be resourceful?
Yeah, to be resourceful, I think you have to really take inventory of your life, both professionally and personally.
Mhm.
And in some cases, you have to clean up your life, right? You have to
Yeah.
make sure that you have an organized workspace, an organized living space that you can actually relax in and not feel like, another thing to do, right? And I think you have to look at the people in your life. Do you have the right business partner? Are you hanging out with the right people? Do you need to move to a new location? All of that goes into play in allowing us to get out of bed and have that vigor in the morning that I was talking about earlier.
Mm.
You can't have that vigor if you're surrounded by toxic, people or environments.
Sure. True. So if somebody were to, assess their life and realize I'm surrounded by only toxic people, what's something that they can do to get out of that?
I believe that you can always make a change.
Hmm.
There really is no one job that is so fantastic that you can't leave it and find something else. The money might be good, the people might be good, the hours might be good, but it's the fear of the what if game. What if I don't find something? What if I hate it? But you know what? What if it's better? So I always tell people, if you're unhappy, if you're in a toxic environment, let go of the what if negatives, but think about the what if positives. What if the next job makes you more money? What if the next job has more supportive colleagues? What if you move somewhere and it's even better than you were living before?
Hmm.
You can always go back, but you can never get back playing that what if game.
Hmm. Awesome. And so after I guess you help them with their mindset, are you able to help them kind of create actionable steps like a plan?
Absolutely, absolutely. Once we figure out what changes they want to make, like for example, I have a client right now who is making a relationship change. She's had the same partner for 8 years and they're not married, but it's gone as far as it can go. But
Hmm.
it's comfortable. They live together. They're almost more like roommates more than they are an intimate partnership, right?
Hmm.
And so, we are putting together a plan where she can follow that relationship to the end, where she's able to leave it in such a way that they both agree. And I won't take time on that process now,
Of course.
but there is a way to do that. There is a way to exit a relationship in a healthy way for both people. Then it's figuring out, okay, you're obviously moving out. Where do you want to move? And what do you want that to look like? And so it's just kind of a process, and that's what I do with my clients. And again, even on the professional side, I have a lot of clients who think they should be entrepreneurs, who think they should own their own business, but then really when it comes down to it, the 6 to 7 days a week, the 10 to 12-hour days, it gets really long and hard for them. And maybe they enjoy being more of a part of a 9 to 5 corporate team instead. So it's just finding that sweet spot.
Hmm. Well, it's great to have plans, but then life happens. How do you help people or help your client move through those instances where maybe they got laid off and the company went under, or their house burned down, or something big happened just out of nowhere and just totally knocks them off their feet. What How do you handle those situations?
You know, that is a really great question. And the unexpected is something that none of us know.
Hmm.
And kind of the joke in life is we think we have this 100 years. You might only have 50
Hmm.
total,
Yeah.
right? And so at the end of the day, there's always going to be the hurdles. There's always going to be the hardships. And the minute you get comfortable in life, life is going to poke you in the side and say, get back on your toes, right? It's just the way it is. There's a lot of people that will say, I'll sleep when I'm dead, right?
Yeah.
Well, you don't want that to be too early, right? And
I've
so,
I've tried that and it never works.
right, exactly, And so when people get frustrated with life, when they get angry with, maybe they're spiritual and they're angry with God, they're like, why isn't this working, or why did this happen, or maybe they worry about karma. I should have never done that in my teenage years. Now I'm paying for it, right?
Hmm.
You kind of have to release all of that. I think we almost just get ourselves all worked up into a frenzy. It's kind of like taking a soda can, right? If you
Yeah.
take a can of Coke, you shake it up, and then you pop the top, it's going to explode. The goal is that you don't let yourself get to the point where you explode. So you kind of disperse some of this negative energy as you go along. You kind of clean it up as you go. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes. It's a great analogy too,
Mhm.
so it can. So, I like that. Um, so then if somebody's wanting to do what you do right now, Nancy, what would you suggest?
Well, in terms of being a coach or having their own business, or what part of that?
Um, I guess let's start with being a coach. If they wanted to do the relationship and life coaching and business coaching like you do, what would you suggest?
Well, first of all, I think you have to think of where can you be of the most service? Because again, as a coach, I really believe your strength is listening, number one, but then being able to not talk over your client, but talk with them. And so, for example, people who maybe have gone through cancer would become really good cancer coaches for people who are going through it, or people who have gone through an eating disorder become really great mentors and coaches for people who have gone through eating disorders. Just like if I was going to, someone who's starting a business, you kind of want to be coached by someone who has done it from beginning to profitable, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's figuring out what have you gone through and what do you have to pay it forward? What do you have to teach other people? How could you relate to them? And I think stories are very powerful. So I invite all of your listeners to start journaling, start thinking of all the different stories that you could tell related to that. And that's how I think you figure out what type of coach to become.
Mhm.
And then when it comes to starting your own business, again, not every business is going to be, a huge corporation. A business can be two people. A business can be a solopreneur. And I think you have to think of quality of life because there's a lot of people that are very successful and they keep it manageable. They keep it either hourly or maybe they do retreats or, whatever they want that business model to look like. And the fun thing is we have the ability to create it however we want.
True. True. There are a lot of resources. I was speaking with a previous guest, Stephanie Latore, and she said it's so easy these days to actually get something going. There's just so many resources. But on the flip side of that is knowing, where to look. So do you have any suggestions for resources for people wanting to look into that seriously?
Well, I think online you can find a ton of resources, but I do encourage people to, really look for reviews. I'm a big fan of checking pros and cons. And
Mhm.
if I have a good experience, I will put out a great testimonial. If I don't, I won't, right?
Mhm.
But I think before you jump, before you put down your credit card, do a little online research. Find out what is the experience of other people. Okay, so I think looking at reviews is really important. I think if you were going to jump, let's say, into getting a coaching degree, coaching certificate, you might call 3 different coaching schools, see where they're similar, see where they're different, see if one coaching school tends to lean more in a niche that you're looking to get into. So I think it's just kind of analyzing your moves before you take them.
Mhm. Mhm. That's great. Um, I had another question. I didn't write it down, so now I forgot. I have to edit this out too. Sorry, let me try and get my train of thought back. Oh, were there any stories that you wanted to share specifically about how you got into broadcasting and coaching?
Well, the thing is broadcasting was really kind of a love that I had as a little girl, again, watching Oprah and thinking, how can I do that? And then when I was trying to put my broadcasting career together, you know, it was really deciding what type of broadcaster do I want to be? Do I want to be a reporter? Do I want to be an anchor? Do I want to be a host? Do I even want to just be in front of the camera or do production? That's the thing. In life and in business, there's choices. We have choices. We just have to try different things on. I realized that I was better as a talker in front of the camera than I was in production. And good thing, right? Because being in production as a blind person would be a little bit more tricky. I didn't, thankfully I
Sure.
chose the right route early on, right?
Yes.
Um, and then same with coaching. And with coaching, there's a lot of different ways that you can go. I know plenty of coaches that do half an hour, hour-long sessions. I know people that do, half day, full day retreats by phone, in person. The great thing is you can design it however you want. I really encourage your audience before you jump into getting a coaching degree, before you invest in, resources that you're going to find, because somebody's always trying to sell you something, right?
Yeah.
Before you do all that, I really want you to take a moment and just kind of envision, what kind of lifestyle do you want to have? Do you want to work weekdays only? Do you want to travel and have retreats? Are you someone that would like to see people in person, or are you someone who would rather make money and work by phone? Figuring out what type of business that you want to have is really important, because that's going to dictate where you're going to spend your money on, different resources. It might even dictate how much further you go in your education, whether you get a coaching degree, maybe you go and get a doctorate, who knows, right? But you kind of have to sit with yourself and envision, what is the lifestyle you want to have? What do you look like? What are you wearing? Where do you live? What kind of
Hmm.
home would you like to have? You know, where are you on holidays? Are you traveling? Are you with family and friends? Just kind of putting that together. And that is something that I really think is important, because I know I'm not alone on this. Time goes really, really fast.
Oh yes.
And
Oh yes.
I think early on in life, if we get that entrepreneurial bug and we get that business bug too soon, and we put everything into that, or even later in life, it gets lopsided and you're 90% business and then 10% everything else. You're going to miss the most important moments. You can't get back time with people, right? You can't get back time of our youth, you
No.
can't, and sometimes the health conditions will come later and you'll be like, oh, I wish I had taken that trip to Australia, right?
Mhm.
The time is now to do it.
Yeah, definitely. Because isn't there that saying, "You're never younger than you are today"?
That's a good saying, although I like to think, for myself anyway, I'm kind of like good wine. I get better with age.
True. That's true. That's true as well. That's
Yeah.
true as well. Oh,
I'm a Cabernet girl. What can I say?
oh, okay. Okay. Well, down here in Texas, we have a Dr. Pepper, so I drink a lot of Dr. Pepper. So,
There you go. There you go.
so you had mentioned Oprah, looking up to Oprah. Were there other role models that you had that you wanted to follow?
There were many different people over the years. She just kind of stuck out because she was kind of my 10-year-old escape
Yeah.
when people were yelling around me or my family was breaking apart. She was a good place to be. But there's a lot of professionals over the years that I have found to be inspiring, and to me it's really learning and reading and tracking their progress. I mean, even if we take somebody today who is famous and successful, it's interesting to do research and figure out, where did they go to school? What was their degree? Did they
Hmm.
do internships? What was their first job? Susie Orman's one that I, over the years, have kept an eye on. I've liked her tenacity, and she started out as a waitress, and grew it from there. And I also really believe in just going online and using social media for the positive, meaning you can find a lot of rags to riches stories that are very inspiring. Um, and I like to surround myself with motivation.
Hmm. Yeah, that's great. And I have to ask too, because I'm a ghostwriter. I love books. Are there books that you like to read on the topic?
I'll be honest, I do read books, but a lot of times they're auditorial because of
Hmm.
my vision. So my days of sitting down and opening up a book and staring at the pages are probably over, but I do listen to a lot, through my iPhone, or I have different book readers that I use. And it's not so much about getting through a whole book, because there's so much that I have to read for work and even my own pleasure. I'm right now learning guitar, and I'm trying to study lyrics and read music, and I'm trying to learn how to cook certain dishes, so I'm looking for recipes. So I have to be very careful with my time. But it's interesting in life how, even this moment right now, you and I talking, your audience being with us, and hopefully they've gotten some out of today. But, it's interesting how the right moments come to you when you need them. And so when I go to a book and I might listen to a little bit, I might fast forward, I generally hear exactly what I need. And this is the power of online. I love taking my iPhone and I will say, Siri, give me a video on YouTube that talks about forgiveness. And then all of a sudden, it's going to come up with all these videos about forgiveness. Or Siri, give me a video on YouTube that talks about how to better organize my office. All of a sudden, you got all these videos about how to organize your office. So the beauty about technology is you can really serve it up. Like whatever you need, the important thing is for your audience is what do you need right now? And have your own way of finding it. For me, it's Siri, but everybody has their own way. And find those resources that speak to what you need. Don't be guided by the flashy objects, right?
Mhm.
Don't go down avenues you don't need to. But gosh, if you're looking to start a business, then look at everything you possibly can about starting a business. If you're looking to get into coaching, then just absorb yourself in starting or revamping a coaching career. If you're going through a breakup, then you know what? Siri, give me motivational videos on how to get through a breakup. Whatever it is, right? Serve it up. Exactly what you need.
Mhm. I'm jealous because my Siri isn't as helpful as yours. Apparently, I'll
Oh,
say
she's
Siri,
great.
yeah, I'll say Siri, help me find directions to this place, and it's like, oh, you want to go to New York? I'm like, no, I never said New York.
Oh, that's funny. Well, that's when you get a new phone.
True,
That some relationships have to end, even Siri, but
true,
that's okay.
true.
Yeah.
You're right. So, if somebody's listening to this and they really like, hearing your approach to coaching and all that you have to say, and it really clicks with them, how did they reach out to you? How did they connect with you, Nancy?
Absolutely. They can go to livingfullout.com. That's kind of the main hub for everything. And they can definitely hear our radio show. We do it live. We take live callers. So, hey, if they're having a challenge, call me. And it's sometimes the best way to learn how to coach is to actually be coached. And
Mm,
then when you flip it around, it's really interesting because you feel what you felt what your clients feel when you're with them. So I had done coaching. I had been coached before I ever became one. So I knew what my clients felt. I knew what it felt like to put down your credit card. I knew what it felt like to book a session and feel like, oh my gosh, I only have 5 minutes left and we haven't ironed out all my issues.
yeah.
I know what that process is like. So I think it's important to be the student and then be the teacher. But go to livingfullout.com. You can hear the radio show. We have a lot of different blog articles on there that will speak to getting your career going, to getting out of different, relationship conflicts, whatever it is. Also, we're on all the social medias, LinkedIn, YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all those. And if they want to reach out to me personally, they can. My email is connect@livingfullout.com, or they can just call me at 310-909-7800.
Awesome. Awesome. That's a lot of information. That's great. So is there anything exciting coming up for you and Living Full Out, or are you just going to keep doing what you're doing?
Oh my gosh, we always have things coming up. Always, always, always. We're writing some more books, and that's exciting. That it just takes time to really flush out and make it the best it can be. We're always looking to bring more education and inspiration to social media. The thing is we're not. I mean, we're not a. We do make money, but we're so big on inspiring, and we give so much away that we try to figure out, and this is sometimes the hardest thing, but even as coaches, you want to think about this, is everybody's going to have a different learning method. So some people are auditorial learners like me, and some people, prefer to read and actually hold a book or hold a newspaper, and that's like you, right?
Hmm.
And so whenever we come up with content, we're constantly trying to figure out, various delivery methods for that. So if you go back to Living Full Out today and you go back like next week or even 2 days from now, we're always putting new content on there.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So, Nancy Solari, thank you so much for being on the Career Challenges podcast with me.
Thank you for having me. And I just, wish everybody all the best and go out there and live full out, but most of all, have fun. That's what it's all about.
True, true.